The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Faster by. Good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line on Manx Radio. Your chance to have your say. You can text, email, call. You can WhatsApp, whatever you want to do. Get it off your chest today. If you want to comment on the Rosalind Ranson Tribunal, the case subsequent to that, what's happening, the Chief Minister's rejoinder to that, the fact that there will be an investigation but not a public inquiry, because apparently that might cost too much money. Any thoughts on that? By all means, do get in touch. I just want to, before we go any further, there's an appeal for witnesses from the constabulary. An elderly woman was assaulted. An incident occurred in the area of Queen's Pier Road in Ramsey. Police are appealing for witnesses after an elderly woman was subjected to a seemingly random and unprovoked assault in Ramsey in the Queen's Pier Road. It happened about 3:30 on Wednesday the 3rd of May. So that's a week last Wednesday when she was walking home. The victim travelled past the junction of Queen's Pier Road and Summerland. A second female is reported to have approached her and believed to have started shouting obscenities towards the elderly female, spitting in her direction before ultimately slapping her across the face, knocking her off balance and obviously causing her a great deal of distress and upset. No lasting injuries were sustained. Now, the suspect is described as being a white female, medium stocky build, blonde shoulder-length hair, aged no younger than 50 years. She's reportedly 5'3" or 5'4" in height and had well made up lips, eyelashes and nails. She's believed to have had a dark coloured handbag or a brown handbag in her possession. The reasons behind the actions aren't known at the moment. Now, if you witness the event or you can identify the suspect, you're asked to contact the police as soon as possible. If you can call, then they'd like to hear from you. 631212. This is 3:30, Wednesday, 3rd of May. 631212, and ask to if you've got information about that. The last of three... Now, I just want to get to this today because apparently the turnout has been appalling at this in the past, so let's try and get some bodies there today. The last of three chances for you to see and discuss with traffic officers the living streets proposals for Central Douglas. There have been two already, and the turnout just wasn't very good at all. All three will have been held at All Saints Church Hall. It's on today from 2 till 4. It's your chance to meet the traffic officers, find out about the living streets proposals for Central Douglas. 2 till 4 today at All Saints Church Hall. We sent John Moss to find out what was happening.
The subject, the flow of traffic, and judging by the flow of people into these three sessions, it's a subject close to many people's hearts.
Speaking personally and selfishly, my end of Alexander Drive is not covered by any of the safety measures that have been outlined. There is absolutely nothing being introduced, and I know with what trepidation my granddaughters, my neighbours and their children or grandchildren, we're scared to cross that road.
I mean, our main concern really is the volume of traffic that uses the road, so we'll have to see how it goes.
So you say some way of getting that volume down, of steering traffic away from this area, is the answer. Are you saying that? Am I putting words into your mouth?
Yes, you are. Yes, because they'd have to have a strategy of where that traffic would go. That's the thing, really.
It's got to go somewhere.
It has got to go somewhere.
I think it's more a matter of allowing the traffic to flow freely rather than controlling the amount of traffic. Particularly on the lower part of Somerset Road, the parking on both sides of the road does restrict the amount of traffic traffic that can go through it at any one time.
There's been a need for a while for some safety improvements in the area, especially for pedestrians crossing the main roads, where on St Catherine's Drive and Hawarden Avenue there are no crossings at present.
Do you walk kids to school?
I do, yes. I've got two children, and they both gone to school. We've lived in the area for 20 years, and the children are still school age. So
MHK, I can call it. 20 is plenty was your campaign.
20 is definitely
Yes.
plenty.
This seems to have a lot more impetus to it. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely. It's an amazing number of people that are coming in to engage with this. My ideal would be Peel Road, Quarterbridge Road, Bray Hill, Woodburn Road at 30 mile an hour, and anything inside that in this area at 20, and then we all know where we are.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I work for the Department of Infrastructure and Highway Services.
This is the middle one of 3 sessions here
It
at different
is,
times of the
yes,
day.
yes.
Are you gratified by the amount of people who've taken an interest?
Oh, it's absolutely wonderful. That's what we wanted. We wanted to get residents to come and have a chat with us. There's not a formal meeting. It's not a presentation. It's very much giving them some ideas, but them giving us feedback and more ideas on things that they want in this area to improve their neighbourhood in terms of traffic.
We need to get lots of people there today. It's between 2 and 4 this afternoon. All Saints Church Hall. 2 till 4 today. Living Street scheme in central Douglas. The area, by the way, the proposed scheme of the Douglas Central area is starting from Woodburn Road up to Bray Hill, then down the Quarterbridge roundabout onto the Peel Road, from Peel Road up to Ballacamine Road, then through Mount Bradder and Hawarden Avenue, where it meets Woodburn Road again. That's central. If you live in and around that area, what do you think of what Ann Call at MHK had to say? 30 miles an hour for the outer roads, 20 miles an hour inside. Ann Corlett's had this campaign, and if you live in the area, you've probably had a leaflet saying 20 is plenty, and nip along today, just see what you think. Particularly if you have children around that area, how safe do you think that is? So it's 2 till 4 today. All Saints Church Hall for the Living Streets proposals. Now, Juan's with us now. Hi, Juan.
Hey, Andy. How are you enjoying the 4th Industrial Revolution? Are you all set for it?
I'm ready for it. I think I'm ready. Well, I was as ready as I was for the first 3 anyway.
Yes, just keep taking that D3 for that cough. We want you ready for it. We don't want you ill.
Thank you.
Now listen to this. A bit of housekeeping from yesterday. We can't let that go without a little bit of rebuttal. You get some good double acts on there, and there's been some classic ones over the years. Anna Morecambe and Wise and Lowland Hardy had a good comedy act on there yesterday, I've got to admit. But you looked well on the live feed there, Andy, I've got to say, but I'm just noticing Andrew's tie yesterday. Was that a Russian tie you had on yesterday?
I didn't spot that, to be quite honest.
Did you not? You had to look back on the live feed. It might be a Russian tie.
What did you think about what the head of the Manx Green Party had to say?
The Manx Green Party, just looking at the UK elections there the last couple of days, they done really well, didn't they, in the UK elections? Were they at the bottom of the pile?
What do you think? I mean, Andrew Langan-Newton's point is that that young people get this more than older people, so that the Green Party future is coming up. I mean, the Green Party is quite big in Europe, but then again, they have proportional representation. They've never done historically well with first past them, but they've only got one. Is it just one MP in Britain? Is it the lady in Brighton, I think?
I think so, and let's face it, I mean, younger people can be manipulated far easier than people who've been around the block a couple of times. So, as I think you mentioned yesterday, the scare tactics that we've had over the years, of the world's going to end and the world is nigh. I mean, it went through a stage where they were scared about how cold it was going to get at one stage in the 80s, and and the world looks after itself, doesn't it? I mean, we don't help it in some ways, that's for sure, but all this scaremongering is a little bit crazy, and you wonder what the actual what the end game is. I was going to ask you that the advert that's been prompted on the front of the Mannin Line, the net zero matrix. I take it that's a sponsored advert, is it?
I don't think it's there anymore, to be quite. I don't think it's been there for ages.
Oh, I thought it was on quite recently, actually. And I was just trying to find it as a company. I was kind of struggling there, but it seemed to appear under Curtis Associates somewhere. So I'm just, was that a little bit of propaganda yesterday? I thought, I thought I've got a few sofas I want to sell, so maybe if I get the government to make it legal that everyone has to buy my sofas, and then I could come on and do the same kind of propaganda. Do you think that would work?
Well, I think John Curtis has never made any secret of the fact that he's a businessman. He's a guy who started in petrochemicals, and, if you like, has seen an opportunity where net zero is concerned. Net Zero Matrix, I think it's .im, netzeromatrix.im, or anyway, you can find it in the search engine.
Oh, I have.
You get it's funny when you put Net Zero Isle of Man, it gets mixed up with the government's Net Zero website, so you'll be there for hours. So I don't think there's no secret of the fact that, I mean, John Curtis is like lots of other business people who are involved in the green agenda. He said yesterday, business will solve it and business will go where the money is. I don't think that's any secret. There are lots of people in the net zero and in the green business, people who make solar panels, people who make heat pumps and what have you. They're not there to for the goodness of their heart. They're there to make money.
That's a good defence for them. But you know what gets me and what gets a lot of people is they jump straight onto, and they did it again yesterday, they jump straight onto, well, this is law and you have to follow it and you're going to have to change all your lifestyles to do this. And the thing about this is there's split science on this. This is not all cut and dried. There's a vast amount of split science on this. And when they're asked questions, I mean, it's like the 50 turbines. That disappeared in the conversation yesterday. It's quite clearly on the energyview.com website, which is part of Curtis Associates. Why would he not acknowledge that they want to put 50, which would be 27 or 28-storey high buildings, 50 turbines down through the Isle of Man? And at the end of that, if you were going to accomplish something out of it, maybe there would be a question. But when you look at the Idaho model, and I think it's, a massive amount of 146,000 acres they want to take up with wind turbines to replace 34-acre site now that's doing the same thing. Something doesn't add up, does it? It just sounds like someone's out to make a lot of money out of us and sell us another pup.
But it can't happen without government sanction. I mean, all around the world. Are you in Mexico or Florida at the moment, Ewan?
I'm actually in sunny Onken, Andy.
Oh, you're in Onken. I was just going to say. Well, cast your mind back to how many wind farms are there in Florida, or are they all solar farms?
Solar.
Right, obviously because of the climate.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's all got government sanction. It's been sanctioned by elected bodies. Now, nothing can happen on the Isle of Man unless Tynwald says so. Whether it's the Peel Group's solar farm down at Great Meadow in around Billown, that's got to happen. And obviously, anybody who's putting a solar farm or wind turbines is going to have to sell the electricity to the MUA. You know, which is an arm's length government body anyway. So Tynwald has to approve all this, Ewan.
This is very true. And all I would say on that, and I mentioned this yesterday, you know, the government here, or the civil servants, let's say, because, again, the ministers are only in for 5-year periods, so we've got embodied civil servants here. I've got a habit of buying pups, haven't they? We've got more pups than they are Jekyll kennels. It's dangerous sometimes that they're not looking at the benefits, the true benefits of what we need on the island, and got the same problem with the farming and other things that we've brought up, which is now showing its head.
Well, the Liverpool landing stage.
And Liverpool landing stage, yes, the biggest pup of all. And you know, following, I keep going back to this globalist agendas that they seem to want to follow everybody else. The Isle of Man used to be a leader in its time in the Victorian times and used to step out among anyone else and be brave. They're just following agendas. And I just find that dangerous. And again, we had Andrew Langland-Newton mention these turbines, but John Curtis wanted to avoid being involved with the turbines. What's that all about? Just, come out, and they don't want to say what the truth is, and the truth is they don't want private vehicles on the road. They don't want dairy and meat in the industry and all this crazy stuff. But they know that they don't want to say that because that's going to hurt with the agenda where they want to go. But that's what they want. And if these people were on a platform in a public debate in the Villa Marina with an opposing side, a lot of this stuff would disappear quicker than Kathryn Magson's LinkedIn profile. It doesn't hold water. They haven't got their figures right. I asked about baseloads, and they diverted the questions. There's a lot more, but I think before this government makes any moves with what money we've got left, they should look into this really, really deeply and, consider that these people are just businessmen. They'll just move on to the next thing. Whether they make money or not, they'll just move on to the next thing.
Well, it's 3 years or so to the next general election, so obviously all politicians, no politician goes out with the express intent to not get elected, so they will want to be elected next time, those who are standing.
And yes, they will, and what I find at the moment, and this revolves around the Ranson thing and everything, good people who don't have a voice, you might as well have bad people in there. There's a lot of good people in there who are not saying enough at the moment. And they need to be in there for what they were elected for, elected to represent the people and represent the future of the island. And it disturbs me that these people don't seem to be out there shouting and doing things. They're sitting down there and going with the crowd, and I don't think the crowd is the best place to be going with at the way things are going at the moment around the world.
Well, we live and learn, Ewan, but as far as you're concerned, did you learn anything yesterday from Andrew Langland-Newton and John Curtis that you didn't know before, Ewan?
No, except they've got fantastic euphoria. I mean, they look like two kids being let loose in Toys R Us there for an hour. They had such smiles on their faces. The live chat feed that you've got there, the live feed is quite interesting to watch sometimes, Andy.
Well, it's always best to be positive, isn't it? I mean, and let's face it, they are convinced of their case. It's what they believe, and that's what we like on Mannin Line. We like honest debate, and we like people's honest opinion. And obviously, Mr. Curtis is a very, very successful businessman. Mr. Langland-Newton is the head of a political party on the Isle of Man. And the Green Party does have elected representatives in two of the biggest councils, in Douglas and Onchan.
It does, and again, you see, but the thing, we're back to common sense again, and I've said this before, there's no middle ground. You get this mad rightist opinions and mad leftist, and then the right have to push back the left because they've gone over the cliff. And this is happening with everything at the moment, the sex education bill, the transgenderism, and we go on. And there's no middle ground. And the problem you get with activists is they will not talk. They don't want to talk. They just want to preach what they preach. They don't want to listen to anyone else's view, and that's the problem that you've got. You could quite clearly see that with John and Andrew. They don't want to talk. It's like, this is law, this is what you have to do, and there's no middle ground. And that's the problem that you've got with any activist. This is what happened with BLM, with everything. It's the activists will not engage in middle ground, and that's the problem that we've got here. But if we let this go on without asking relevant questions, we're all going to suffer through this. Because, like he quite openly said, we're all going to have to change our lives and the way that we live. But they don't want to tell people how we're going to have to change our lives. And when that day happens, people are going to be really, really peed off about it.
Yeah. But, I mean, our lives have changed immeasurably in the last 50, 60, 70 years anyway, Ewan.
Yes, they have. And that's evolution. Where I think we're going is not evolution. I think where we're going is if you look at what's happening, and it's a page out of a Marxist playbook. If you look at what's happening around the world, and people you don't see it here on the island because we're in a little cocoon. But when you travel, you can see where these kind of agendas are starting to head with your 15-minute cities and everything else. your carbon credits, which of course has been mentioned but pushed over a little bit. I mean, if everyone realised that you're going to have so many carbon credits every year, and once you've used them carbon credits, you won't be able to get on a flight, or you won't be able to go down to the supermarket
unless you're rich.
Well, I mean, they're engaged as the CDCs, which everyone has got a pen to paper for at the moment to try and get CDCs in, because then you've got a currency that can be switched off and can be manipulated by a government. Like I always say to people, keep spending cash in your pocket, make it awkward, because that's where this could end up quite easily, the way things are going, when it all links together and you link the dots together. So I think, middle ground is definitely the where we should be in a democratic state that we're in. And I seem to think that people seem to be heading us down a Marxist route. I don't know, I might be wrong, but best to fight when you've got soil underneath you rather than trying to punch when you're in water.
All right, thanks, Stuart.
Take care, Andy.
All right, good to hear from you. I just want another quick note. I mentioned that incident that had happened in Ramsey, that we just had a note in from police headquarters on something different, and this is police are concerned for the welfare of a missing woman. She's believed to be in the Douglas area. Her name is Jasmine Cullivan. Now, police are appealing for witnesses to come forward with information. Jasmine's believed to be in the Douglas area. If you've had contact from Jasmine this morning, you know her current whereabouts, then call police headquarters on 631212. Police are anxious to get in touch with or find the whereabouts of Jasmine Cullivan. Call police headquarters 631212. 27 minutes past 12 on Mannin Line, Thursday lunchtime from the Isle of Man. Bonzo's on. Hi, Bonzo.
Hello there, yes. Just listening to Juan. How long was that? 15 minutes? Must be 15 minutes or more of his usual entertaining conspiracy theory that everything is being run by some kind of global elite that is pushing eco-wokist totalitarianism upon everyone.
Yeah, but it's an honestly held opinion, Bonzo.
Well, perhaps if he spent less time looking at Trump's Truth Social and hanging around with the Florida Republicans and such like, he actually might wake up to the actuality of what's happening with the environment and with the climate crisis that we're now in. But that's just an aside. What I really wanted to talk about was the 10 minutes of complete evasion of any form of responsibility whatsoever by Alf Cannon yesterday on the breakfast show. Now, I've looked at the video several times, and it is just appalling. I thought he couldn't match how badly he did in Tynwald on Tuesday, but oh no, he plumbed new depths. It's absolutely mind-bending, the seeming total lack of acceptance that he has any part in this whatsoever, and just spouting again his learned mantra of, oh well, we have systems in place now. Oh, we're doing this. We're reforming that. Right. But what about the problem? Why aren't you addressing the problem? Why aren't you addressing the historic problems? Why aren't you addressing the actual structural problems that make these things happen? Oh, now I'll talk about changing the wallpaper. It's just not good enough. And Sean Cowper was running rings round him. He just really isn't up to this crisis that we have. And it has to be remembered that it isn't simply about the Ranson case. The Ranson case, as we've said before, yes, is an employment issue, but it's what made that situation happen, and has made that situation happen in many occasions in the past, and still has the potential to do that right now. That's not being addressed. And the only way to address that is not with an assessment or a review or whatever magical word that Alf Cannon wants to use. it needs a truly independent inquiry. And that is only possible by having a UK judge who can then come and look at these things totally independently and initiate prosecutions where necessary. This was, of course, the reason and for bringing, as I recall, I can't remember who the judge was, but he was the guy who was the judge in the Jeremy Thorpe case, but the judge who oversaw the Summerland inquiry.
So, do you think that Mr. Cannon knows what the problem is and isn't saying, or do you think he doesn't know what the problem is?
I think it's more the former, but there's also the thing that I don't think he completely understands the problem. So the combination of both things, it's just leading to chaos. Government is in paralysis at the moment, and I'm hearing from quite senior members of the business community that the confidence is going out like the tide, and that's what this island nation runs on. Confidence.
Okay, so that's
otherwise we'll be the supersized version of St Kilda.
Well, it's confidence and also our image abroad. So just let's hypothesize then. What do you think is the problem, and what do you think needs to be done about it?
The problem is that government is structured in such a way that there is far too much in the way of, how can I put it, clubbableness and small island syndrome operating. Too much marking of one's own homework. Yes, of course, we're in a small island and everyone will, to some extent, know everybody else. But those relationships are far too often used for either gain or to cover up various embarrassments, mistakes, wrongdoing, any of those. So that requires a more representative Tynwald for a start, and that needs a change in the electoral system. We need to have single transferable vote so that we don't get these very local politicians who then become national politicians, basically on the votes of mates down the pub, with no understanding of national and international issues. So we have a competency problem with our political class, although some of it's actually now improved somewhat, but there are still places like, indeed, Aaron Michael, where Alf Cannon only has to turn up to get elected. He has to put his name on a ballot paper. It was a feudal seat. He's inherited it from his father, in the way that sort of second sons of dukes used to.
Well, I'm sure the electorate of Aaron Michael might disagree with you there. I don't think they're all trooping off just because the name Cannon's on the... Do you really think that they're going to vote just because the name Cannon is on the voting slip?
Well, perhaps not quite so much because the constituency has expanded. But that's what happened with Michael. When it was the individual constituency, not the combined one. Indeed, if you looked at Alf Cannon's election leaflet for 2016 and looked at his election leaflet for 2011, the only thing that's different on it is the date. We are now at an existential point where we have to sort these things out, and we have to sort these things out in the public gaze. And it's only in the public gaze, both the Manx public gaze and the international public gaze, that confidence can be rebuilt.
And you don't think there's any likelihood that if we prostrate ourselves in front of an outside gaze, that diminishes the image of the Isle of Man?
Well, the Isle of Man's image is already diminished, and it's diminishing daily. So I think from a reputational management point of view, certainly that course of action of a independent public and judge-led public inquiry, that's going to at least maintain some level of confidence and help to rebuild it, because the perception will be, well, at least the Isle of Man is now actually admitting that it has problems and is actually facing up to them, and is starting to try and really come to terms with its history on this and then do something about it.
And what do you think the likelihood is of that?
Well, I would hope the likelihood of that is increasing. I would hope that members of the Manx electorate might make that clear next Tuesday outside Tynwald.
Okay. Bonzo, I appreciate that. Thanks for calling today.
Thanks, then. Bye-bye.
All right, it's 24 minutes before 1. I've just heard the news regarding the prospect of legalising e-scooters, says Helen. My view is this is sheer madness, and their use has caused serious injuries and death in Britain. What's the DOI proposing such ideas? Only increased activity will be from within the police and emergency services. Have you heard this? Possible legalisation of e-scooters on the Isle of Man. Picking them up and dropping them off here, there and everywhere. Any thoughts on the matter? Text, email, call. Would you like an e-scooter? Have you used an e-scooter? The queue in the Isle of Man Bank on Athol Street is over 30 minutes. Says texter 284, 30-minute queue in the Isle of Man Bank. I wonder if they're handing sandwiches out. On the latest batch of bills, Island Energy have charged people again for previous paid bills. Says OFT have clearly been ineffective in their action. Surely Cura need to take some action. Well, there is a cure to that, obviously. Don't pay it. A text in... is anyone asking the businesses in the vicinity of Ballacameen High School their opinion of who can access the area around the school via Belmont Hill and St Catherine's Drive, and the potential adverse impact of customers travelling to an easier business destination rather than driving a circuitous route round Westmoreland Road? Thank you, Julianne, for that. A message in to... I hear, says Sue, that the UK is trying to abolish... Lots of messages in today. I'll try and get through them all. I hear the UK is trying to abolish the stupid system of having to phone for a doctor's appointment at 8 o'clock on the day. I need a non-urgent but essential appointment, but I have a busy schedule, so it's going to be much more sensible if I could make an appointment in advance at a mutually convenient time, and then the surgery and I will know that the appointment's booked and we can work around it. If I have to phone at 8 o'clock, then they would have an appointment available on the day to fit my schedule. It's an absolute nonsense, says Sue, for doctors and patients. It also discriminates against people who are unable to sit on the phone for ages until they get through, by which time it may be even too late for an appointment. Surely this 8 o'clock roulette phone call has to stop. Thank you, Sue, for that. And thank you for everybody. Just more messages in regarding yesterday, regarding that. Actually, that got a lot of reaction. Yes, we'll bring them back in the autumn then, and talk more about this. I just wonder whether you. A lot of people picked up on yesterday what John Curtis said when I prompted him and just said, "Is this an industrial revolution?" He said, "It's a cultural revolution. It is a change of way of life." How much of it actually changes, we don't quite know, because life's like that. Things may not change completely, and who knows, electric vehicles may be suddenly in 10 years' time, they come to the view that they weren't a very good idea. We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. And I think we're all getting the opinion and the picture that business is going to fall into this agenda and make money as it can. John Curtis said that yesterday. That's what businesses do. They see opportunities, supply and demand, and they make money off the back of it. And a message in from 380, no name on it. 380 said, I was still laughing at your learned guest comments, especially around Kroger. From the largest producers in the oil producers in the world to the smallest, I travel around the world regularly, says Texter 380. Sorry, I miss your point on that. Let's get Kroger back soonest to answer their comments. Well, we had Kroger on before, really. Aren't they doing a survey later on this year? I think they're as to whether or not it happens. Then that will have to be ratified by Tynwald. So we wait and see. The conspiracy around 15-minute cities and carbon credits is utter nonsense. Nobody's saying that people can't travel outside the area that they live in, says 653. 20 years ago, says Richie, I used to work with the major oil and petrochemical companies. My workforce were all North Sea, Middle East oil engineers and scientists. We asked the right questions, we worked out the science, we got the answers. So nowadays, I and they would be proud to have 50 turbines in our area. Actually, says Richie, I'm ashamed we don't have any wind turbines of the Isle of Man. Do you think we're behind the curve with wind turbines? Where is going to be the first one? Or the first 10? Now, surely nobody can say the Isle of Man isn't windy enough.
It's good to talk. It's how we get things done. So when you apply for a personal loan from Black Horse, you'll get support from one of our relationship managers who's there to talk you through your application. You could borrow up to £50,000 with up to 7 years to pay it back, and you could receive your money within 24 hours of approval. Ready to talk? Go to blackhorseoffshore.co.uk to request a call back today. Finance subject to status. Applicants must be 18 or over.
Spectrum Windows. If your house needs a new look and your windows let in rain, keep those cold breezes out and make it look like new again. Spectrum Windows, Spectrum Windows. Quality through and through. Great work guaranteed to you. Spectrum Windows, Spectrum Windows. Spectrum Windows.
At Mountain View Innovation Centre, we're all about finding new, innovative ways to do things, and that extends to our food. Right now, we're looking for a catering partner to run our on-site Babbage's Bistro and Bar. With a unique revenue-sharing model, you pay no rents, no rates, and no energy bills. So, if you want the chance to really make your mark on the island's hospitality industry, hit the catering opportunity button at mvic.im and find out more.
Are you a reluctant landlord, tired of tenant hassles, cursed by constant maintenance, tormented by empty properties producing no rent? Want to escape these worries or get out altogether?
At Prime Lettings, we understand your pain and have bespoke solutions to release you from these problems. Ring us on 616-707 for a free confidential chat.
Prime Lettings. We're on call and on the ball at 616-707.
This weekend sees a battle of the Titans in Manx football as two remain to fight it out for the Descartes Railway Cup. Men's Premier League champions Peel and FA Cup winners Corinthians will face off for the silverware this Saturday, and Manx Radio will be bringing you all the action from this massive showdown. Join me, Rob Pritchard and Tony Mepham for full live coverage of the 2023 Descartes Railway Cup final this Saturday at 5:15pm. Manx Radio will be providing full live match commentary on our DAB and AM 1368 channels. The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
16 minutes before 1. Diane's with us. Hi, Diane.
Oh, hello, Andy. Hope you're well.
Fine, thanks.
It's what Joan, is it in sunny Onken was
Yes,
saying?
it was, yes.
And I just wanted to add some to that because he said he didn't know what the end game was. Well, there was a woman from the WEF, we all know what that is, the
World Economic Forum, yeah.
Yeah, which is running the world. And she was given a speech or a conference, I believe it was at the Epoch Times. I've got it on video anyway. And she's saying this is all, these 15-minute cities and villages and what Douglas has now started, because it's going on all over the world. Once that's completed, they'll be able to deal with the climate change because you won't be allowed to leave these cities and neighbourhoods only about 2 or 3 times a year.
A year?
A year, and she said that will lead to us to be able to lock down for climate change. So people need to wake up. What Ewan was saying was absolutely true, and they need to actually, wake up to these things, because it's happening. Thetford in Norfolk, because I come from Norfolk, so I was following this. They've been causing riots over it, and they all stood for the local government, and some of them been elected because they set up a place where they could meet, and they put the leaflets out and the hall would only hold 200 people, and over 300 people in the little town of Thetford from the other area around Brecklands came to this meeting, and now they've got people elected this in Thetford, people who've never been elected before. But that's all, if anybody on the internet, that's all on the internet. But if Ewan wanted what I've got, or anybody else, I've got it on the computer.
So do you think they could, they're proposing, this 15-minute city around Upper Douglas at the moment.
I know. So they've started here, but they're not telling you. People need to start writing for freedom of information, under freedom of information, about what they're doing about this. And I've also heard, I've got on the internet anyway, and people, I've seen the list, there's thousands and thousands of companies and councils involved in this. They're investing in it, and loads of them, people who've got pensions pots, they're finding out now that these people who are investing in these 15-minute and 20-minute this, that and the other, and city villages and all this nonsense, are using people's pension funds. This is an absolute disaster. When Ewan talked about Marxists and that, well, it's even worse than that. I mean, I'm getting on now. I'm over 80. Hopefully by that's been accomplished, I shall be long gone. But I do try to warn people. I do try to wake people up, and they need to contact their MHKs or the Douglas Council, because they're the ones involved in doing all this in Douglas, and of course your main MHKs, and people must be told.
Okay. All right, Diane, we appreciate that today. Thanks for calling us. And by the way, you've got years left. Thanks for calling us today. Well, Dan mentioned the 20-minute city or the 15-minute city that's going to be happening around Upper Douglas at the moment. I don't think it's their express intention to stop people ever leaving there, but the Manx Development Corporation are the people behind that. We've offered Manx Development Corporation many opportunities to come on Mannin Line. As yet, they have not taken up our kind invitation, but they're more than welcome. Mr. Dane Harrop, the boss of the Manx Development Corporation, is more than welcome on Mannin Line absolutely any time. Dave in Onken said, when are you going to start broadcasting on DAB? You say you're broadcasting, but it isn't. I live in Onken, retune my DAB tuner several times. Manx FM, Manx AM and Energy are all showing on the channel list, but nothing is broadcasting. All the BBC channels are broadcasting correctly, so my tuner's working fine. Dave, I've passed that through to the people with the soldering irons, and we are on air. At the moment, we have an experiment for a couple of years, I think, with one DAB transmitter aimed towards Douglas, Onken, parts of the Central Valley, and obviously if that works, if everything turns out okay, we'll roll that out right around the Isle of Man. But at the moment, it is restricted to parts of the east of the Isle of Man. And at the moment, just try. I know I've listened on DAB, and it does vary once you head out of Onken. Fingers crossed anyway. I haven't had a holiday in 25 years because I have savings. I've saved throughout my life, says David, and because I now have savings, I'm going to be penalised when I eventually require care. Is that fair? And a message. Julian's with us now. Hi, Julian.
Hi, Andy. Just wanted to agree with Ewan and Diane wholeheartedly. I also actually agree with Bonzo on the other subject, which is perhaps Kathryn Magson and Henrietta Hewitt should really be held to account on this. I don't see why anyone should be paying, as Bonzo correctly corrected me, probably $5 million this is all going to cost in the end. You know, if somebody did a hit and run on the island in an English car and buggered off to England, I'm sure we get them back in short notice. So,
I don't think there's any likelihood that Kathryn Magson will ever set foot on the Isle of Man again.
And I've just had a quick look at what June said about her LinkedIn account. Talk about getting the broom out, and Kathryn M now she goes by. So
It's funny, when all this was happening, I've been checking Kathryn Magson's LinkedIn profile diligently, and as soon as she departed, the Isle of Man was just rubbed out of it. It's like it had almost never existed.
Yeah, Kathryn M, the health practitioner formerly known as Magson. But just a quick one. I wonder if Bonzo might have some sympathy for the people of Mongolia at the minute. The IPCC that he will be listening to is talking about the climate catastrophe. I think we're running out of things. Is it going to be the climate apocalypse next, or the climate annihilation? I don't know. I don't know how many more they can go before everyone is scared witless. But 213,000 people in Mongolia, including 80,000 children, according to Save the Children, have endured the harshest winter in living memory, with regular minus 40 Celsius obliterating their goat herds, and they are now camping, waiting for the government to give them food, health and hygiene facilities. India's Met Office are recording the coldest winter in 36 years. Dolby, and this is the one in Queensland in Australia, not the one that Andrew Langham-Newton talked about yesterday, is the start of those 27-storey wind turbines that are going to go all the way past Sandygate. They reported a degree colder than their 1911 record at minus 3.2 on the Sunshine Coast. Brisbane Airport is currently reporting the coldest winter is 2022 in living memory. Michigan's Upper Peninsula, historic cold. Germany, minus 1.37 below the multi-decadal average. Austria, minus 2 Celsius colder than normal. So if this climate annihilation, whatever it is, apocalypse, explosion, I don't know, there's an awful lot of places around the world that have been reporting coldest weather for some time now.
We're all trying to find our way through what this agenda is, Julian, whether it's an ecology agenda, whether it's for the good of the Mother Earth, whether it's a political agenda, whether it's a financial agenda. But I think we all know something's up. Something is definitely happening, because the way we live in the future is going to be subject to change. I just go back to what John Curtis said yesterday. He said a cultural revolution.
Well, yes. I mean, don't you find it interesting that all these 15-minute cities, as prescribed in that C40s.org ARAP report, seems to be following on very quickly after COVID lockdowns, sort of training us to be used to sort of staying at home and not going out.
Well, it was very interesting. And throughout the media, comment was made amongst kind of media professionals about how quickly people decided that was what the agenda was, and people acquiesced more or less entirely.
Yeah, but, once bitten, twice shy, perhaps. Let's just see what happens. I mean, if we suddenly hear about another dead goose next to the Wright's Pit, which isn't lined, so all sorts of things might sort of surface, especially if you have a lot of rain and the water table lifts up all that horrible lead and cobalt and God knows what's in that pit. I mean, they might just use that as an excuse if this pandemic preparedness treaty comes in, where they can say, you've all got to stay home and you've all got to be jabbed with our new whatever concoction they've come up with.
But I mean, Julian, everybody used to run towards vaccinations. I mean, anybody who's been to an exotic destination in the Far East or in South America ran towards vaccinations. We were never hostile to vaccinations.
No, and there's been an awful lot of people being taught this right from the word go, isn't it? That vaccinations are always the way ahead, and it may be that some are. But when, for example, if you're thinking of buying a car and it hadn't been through NCAP and crash test dummies and the requisite number of years checking, say, the new braking system that has all of a sudden come out and the new engine propulsion system, and it had 2 months of testing instead of maybe, 5 years and all the rest of it, would you buy it?
Well, we'll see what happens, Julian, but as sure as anything, we're moving towards something. We don't know what shape it is yet. We don't know how it's going to affect each one of us. I think we all know it's going to cost us money, but we look forward to the future with wonderment, perhaps.
Yeah, we'll just have to keep an eye on that debt ceiling announcement in America, because I think that might be pivotal as to what might be going on in the near future.
We can always print more money. That's one thing we can always do. All right, Julian, thanks for calling today.
Thanks, Andy.
All right, it's 4 minutes before 1 on Manx Radio. I agree with Jewan, says Ian. There's clearly an agenda to change our lives. It should be a genuine concern for everybody. The loss of cash will be next on the list, and that'll be a sad day, says Ian. I think all of this comes down to one thing, and to quote Mel Gibson in Braveheart, it's freedom. Our freedoms are being taken away from us gradually, and I think it's sad. It's a subversive campaign. We appear to be badgered and harangued into it. Thank you, Ian. A week on Monday, Claire Barber's going to be here with Steve Stanley. She's DEFA Minister and he's Interim Chief Officer. And a couple of days later, a week next Wednesday, Daphne Kane, MHK, will be here from the Climate Change Transformation Board, along with a couple of the members, Clive Callister and Dave Sowden. Let's just get as much information out there as possible. If you think you know all about it and you can tell us, then call in tomorrow. Thanks to Ben and Chris on the phones today. Mannin Line's back, open line at midday.
WINT